Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Chapman, and I'm going to inform you today about differentiated instruction. First, I will cover what it is. Second, I will cover how to effectively implement this differentiated instruction. Then I will cover how to prepare both students and the classroom for it and what it looks like. And then lastly, I will provide some examples of some instruction practices and then critique them. So firstly, what is differentiated instruction? Simply, it's the variation of different teaching techniques in order to more easily communicate your ideas to students. Since all students have different learning methods and different base understandings of the material, different backgrounds, varying these techniques can be more effective in order to fulfill all these learning methods. So, how can you differentiate your instruction? Well, there are many ways. There are three different group sizes that one can utilize, those being either individuals, small groups, or your whole class. The individual can work on assessments or assignments by themselves. Small group projects or discussions allow each student to be involved while still promoting discussion. Lectures and class discussions allow for a quicker distribution of your information. In order to cater to all the needs of all your students, one should mix the elements of each in your lessons. We'll cover an example of this later. Um, so, how can one prepare their students and their classrooms for differentiated instruction? Well, students can learn by many methods as long as they have a base knowledge of what they're actually doing. So, providing instructions for their activities, educators give students a guideline to help them study and work. For example, when you split into small group discussion, they need to know what they're discussing and what they need to conclude. So they need points to start from, and they need supplementary materials in the classroom in order to complete their activity. These materials need to be available, whether they're task cards or arts and crafts materials, reading other materials, say videos. Differentiated instruction can take many forms. It doesn't have an exact look. For one, it can look like a class just watching an informational video. It can look like students in small groups creating a poster to explain a timeline of events. It can look like a circle of students talking about their recently assigned novel, a student working on a test, or listening to lecture. Basically, it's not meant to have a specific look, rather many different ones based on the individuality of the lesson. So we're going to cover some bad examples of differentiated instruction that are commonly practiced in the classroom today. So, say at the college and high school level, there are many instructors that use lectures to distribute their information. Lectures, they're a great way of quickly distributing it, but they don't require much more from the student than note taking and memorization. It's not very involved, so in order to get students more involved and think more critically about the material, an instructor should give them a project or make them work with others. A good way to build on this is to have students, say, create a video of them teaching, say, your instructor about the material to know that they, first of all, got it all and understand what they're talking about. Uh, gives them extra opportunities to go through the material and learn it better on top of that. Next, grouping by test scores from primary experiences. Students come from all different backgrounds and have different ideas. So taking students and bring them into groups of similar minded students or similarly, what's the word, uh, performing students kind of limits their view. So by mixing the students with different performing students, say you get students that have A's, B's, and C's, and a couple F's, mix them all together so they can communicate their ideas more. And on this mix of different education levels, you can have peers teach each other basically what they don't understand in class. So it just helps them all learn better. And then lastly, providing extra credit for classroom participation. Extra credit is a great way to get students more involved with the class content, but not all students understand their topic of discussion at first glance, and some need time to think about it. By giving out extra credit for one particular activity, whether it be classroom participation or an outside of class lecture, an instructor unfairly leaves out the students that can't really, say in the classroom participation example, articulate their thoughts in a classroom setting. So extra credit should still be offered, but there should be varied ways to gain the extra credit. So, like I mentioned, the outside of class presentations and lectures, they're a great way for students to stay involved with the content and learn more, and then maybe have them write a reflection over what they learned. That would keep them involved and make them think about the content. In class discussion, that is also a great way to get students involved and spread their ideas. But some students have anxiety or other reasons to not talk in class. Therefore, it should just be a uh, varied way to give students extra credit to keep them involved. Now, a good example of differentiated instruction, there are a couple ways to go about, say, reading a novel in English class. Firstly, what you want to do as an instructor is introduce the novel to the class, just give some instructions on what they want from their students. So, by splitting the novel up, you're allowing them to dig deeper into the content of it. So, what you want to do is have students read a small portion of it on their own. That way, they can understand the content, and then when they come back to class, you can have a large group discussion or a small group. That way, they can understand other students and what their point of view was and compare and contrast. And then you can follow that up with a small quiz just to uh, gauge the student's understanding of the novel in the class discussion. So, to finish off, what you want to do as an instructor for your activity plan is you want to design a lesson that involves at least two different group sizes. So, say if you're giving a history lecture about the Black Death, you can give a lecture to start the class and then have students read an article and discuss it about the Black Death or something of that sort. And try in those two group sizes to at least have one involve discussion or teamwork with other students, just to more effectively allow the students to understand their information. Thank you for listening.